Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. In today's video, I'm going to be making some French country wall art using Redesign and my custom made craft blank. I would like to introduce you to my Regal craft blank. This is the first design in my new line of craft blanks that I'm creating. You can now place a pre-order for the Regal craft blank on my website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au, and I will be adding a lot more designs to my line of blanks and of course doing videos to go with them. The Regal craft blank comes in 3 pieces. You have your main back part, which is the piece that you'll probably be doing a lot of decoupaging or adding transfers to. This part has a removable banner from the center, and as you can see, this is what it looks like with the outside frame part added to the backing, and then the banner here can sit inside if you want to have a raised design in the center as opposed to it being set back. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how you can use this blank in 2 different ways. To begin, I'm going to be using Paint Couture's Farmhouse Linen Chalk Paint. I'm applying it with a makeup sponge, just going all over the back piece of the craft blank and just trying to get some nice even coverage. I did end up doing 2 coats of farmhouse linen over the entire back. My craft blanks are made from MDF like a lot of blanks on the market, so if you are more comfortable with adding a priming coat first, that may be a good idea for bright whites. When that was dry, I took out Redesign's Vintage Script stamp. This has a few different styles of writing on it, and I'm going to be using IOD's Stone Grey ink for this particular part of the project. I wanted it to have more of a faded look. I'm then going to randomly press down on the stamp, not being too heavy, and I want it to look more broken as opposed to being just a complete block of text. And then I came in with a wet wipe and pulled back some of that ink for a bit more of a faded, distressed look. Next, I'm going to be using my JRV Grain Sack Stripe stencil. I am using Abundance Mineral Paint by Paint Couture and a 1-inch stencil brush by JRV. I'm just holding the stencil down, as you can see, really holding those pieces in place, and then I'm dragging my brush up along the different parts of the stencil because there is quite a few moving parts in this particular design. So I'm just dragging that brush down so that I don't disturb it or get any of that bleed through underneath. And once I've got one coat down, I did then go back over the top of it and just added a little bit more paint while I still had it in position, and then I lifted the stencil straight up. When that was dry, I just placed the frame of the blank over the top of the design just to see how it was looking. And I want to add this bee here. This is by Redesign. It's from the French Laurels stamp. I'm just inking it up with some black permanent ink by IOD, and then I'm going to position it in the center. I've got my frame on the blank here just loosely so that I can better position the bee in the area where I want it to go. I'm pressing down firmly but not too hard. I don't want to distort the image, and then I'm lifting the stamp straight up. I then took out this transfer by Redesign. This is the Salon de Diane transfer, and I'm just going to cut out a couple of these little pink roses. Now I am going to have a bit of a play. I just want the roses to be peeking out from the bottom and the side. So you can see I'm making quite a few cuts here to get it to the shape and size that I want. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to peel off the backing and then press it down in the section where I want it to go. If you're having a little bit of trouble working out how you want to place everything with these blanks, you could just use a lead pencil, which I do a little bit later, to go around the frame on the inside, and that will give you a bit of a guide as to where you are going to place your transfers. You can see I'm adding a transfer over on the right hand side now and just really rubbing and burnishing that. Any excess transfers, I'm just using my nail to scrape that off and out of the way. I'm just adding these little buds over on the left side there, and then some on the right hand side as well. Next, I need to think about the section down the bottom. So I'm just using a lead pencil to make some little lines, and then I'm going to do a bit of distressing to pull back a bit of that abundance paint. And then I'm going to come in with some more of that French linen just in that part there so that the banner isn't interrupted by the stenciled stripe. And then here I'm going in with even more lead pencil lines just so I know exactly which direction to add my design in. I then took out one of the stamps from the Queen Bee stamp by IOD, and I'm inking up part of the design and then wiping back some of it with a wet wipe because I'm going to be adding some of this text down the bottom, but I only want to add a little bit at a time. I'm holding the stamp on an angle so that I can follow the line of that banner, and if I miss any sections I can just go back and redo that area, and I'm just going to continue adding the letters that I want until I've filled up that section. When I was happy with the design, I took out another wet wipe and started wiping back some of that ink. Again, we're going for a faded look. Next, I'm using Paint Couture's Black Pearl Luxe Metallic paint. This is a beautiful deep black that reminds me a lot of cast iron. I'm going to be applying 2 coats of this over the entire frame section of the craft blank, and I'm applying it in a dabbing and stippling motion to create some texture. Now, obviously at this point, you could come in with colors, you could come in with green and make it look a bit more like Laurels. There are so many options with this particular style of craft blank. When the second coat was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Bronze Luxe Metallic and I started adding it around the edges of the frame section, but I'm also going to be going in really heavier on the crown up the top, really highlighting that, and I'm also going to be going a bit heavier on the banner outline down the bottom. Now, I did start with the bronze, but you will see a little bit later that I do switch to antique gold because as I was adding the bronze, it just didn't feel quite bright and vibrant enough for me. So always remember that. You can always layer on top, and obviously antique gold isn't that different from bronze. I'm going to go back to the base now, and I'm taking out Paint Couture's Crackle Step 1 and applying that over the entire piece. And then after about 30 minutes, when that's tacky and sticky to the touch, I'm adding Crackle Step 2. I'm going for a vintage look here, vintage and worn, and Crackle's definitely my go-to to create that effect. I let the Crackle medium dry for about an hour, and then I came in with Paint Couture's Light Brown Sugar Glaze, and I'm going to be applying this over the entire base there. And you can see that I'm sort of changing my brush stroke directions a few times just to try and work that glaze into the crackle that we created. And then once I have the entire back covered, I did then take out a wet wipe, and I'm going to be dabbing at the product and also wiping back at the glaze. I don't want to be too rough here. My crackle is still a little bit fresh, and if you go a bit too hard and add too much water, for example, sometimes you can actually pull that crackle up. So you've just got to make sure you're giving that product enough time to dry. So I'm just going to continue wiping at that glaze until I'm happy with how it looks. If the vintage look isn't for you, obviously this is a step that you could leave out. When the glaze was dry, I then took out Paint Couture's Antique Gold Luxe Metallic, and I'm using a sponge to apply it over the top of this stencil that I had in my stash, specifically focusing on the word Paris. I felt like that definitely went with the look that I'm going for. I had a little bit of bleed through onto the little line that was above it, but I actually ended up really quite liking how that looked. I also repeated the same process over some of the sort of scroll running writing. Next, as I said, I ended up going back over the top of the bronze with the antique gold. I felt like this was just a better color combination, so I'm just going to go over the top of the entire piece. But then it did feel a little bit too gold, so I decided to layer back in some of that black pearl so that the antique gold sort of focused more on the outside edges of the little scrolls or laurels, whatever you want to call them, around the outside, just to frame everything out nicely. So you can still see that beautiful antique gold, but we are toning it back a little bit because I really do like the contrast of the black in that frame design with the glaze and the white that we have going on in the background. If I inspire you to try any of the Paint Couture products used in today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would use my affiliate link. I will put it in the description and on the screen. I just get a little thank you from Paint Couture in return. Now you could leave the project here, but I'm going to show you what we can do with the banner part of this wood blank design if you decide you would prefer to use that and bring whatever text or whatever design you want to put there forward. So what I am going to be doing is I'm going to be taking the banner out and I'm going to be adding some of that farmhouse linen chalk paint that we added on the base section. I'm going to end up doing 2 coats of this, and then once that's dry, I'm going to take out a stencil that I had in my stash, and I'm going to be using Paint Couture's pitch black chalk paint with a 1/2 inch JRV stencil brush, and I'm just going over the top of the established in 1892 lettering there, and then I'm also adding in some of these other designs either side. Now to get the other side level, I used the top part of the stencil to just mark a little line so that I had it relatively straight, and then added the other sort of mirror image design on the other side to balance it out. So this is a really simple way of adding some text to that banner design. You can see it's brought to the front. And it's just another way that you can really customize the Regal craft blank. Next, I'm going to be using Paint Couture's light brown sugar glaze, just like we did on the back part of the blank. I'm adding it and then I'm dabbing back some of the excess with a wet wipe. And then I did take my brush, and without adding any more product, I'm just going to run that brush over the edges to darken them up and again add to that vintage look. Once the glaze was dry, I then took out some Gorilla Super Glue and I'm going to apply it over the back section of the frame. So I want to make sure I've got a nice amount of glue there on all the beautiful intricate details of this blank. And then once I've got a good coating of that glue, I'm going to flip it over and glue it down to my surface. And now you can see that I haven't added the banner because I want you to be able to see what they both look like. And also I'm just going to go in now and add some of Paint Couture's antique gold around the outside of my blank. Now this is optional obviously, but I wanted to go around and add that gold for a bit of shine and also to make it look a bit more like a cohesive piece. You could probably add the gold to the pieces before you glue them together as well if you're going to do this look. Now this could just sit on a shelf, but I'm going to add some of this chiffon ribbon to the back. I'm just going to be adding some hot glue, a little bead of hot glue on the left-hand side on the back near the crown. I'm just pressing that down and then working out how much I'm going to need for the other side, and then adding a little bit of glue there as well. And then once I've got that stuck down, I'm going to trim off the excess ribbon, and then I'm going to add another bead of glue and just use that so that I can fold over the end of the ribbon back on itself just to give it a tidier look. So as you can see, that's one way that you can design your craft blank, but you can also then add in the banner if you want a different look. This is definitely a versatile design. And here's a look at our finished project. I really hope that you've enjoyed today's video and that you love the Regal craft blank as much as I do. This is a design that I created myself. I cut it myself, and I'm definitely so passionate about the craft blank designs that I have coming out. So I hope that you'll stay tuned for the other designs that are coming. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit that like button, comment, and share it out. And if you haven't already, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find the products used today, including my new Regal craft blank, on my website, theprovincialfarmhouse.com.au. Thanks for watching.